Okay, it's 1 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the February 14th Finance Committee meeting to order. The first agenda item is the budget meeting process. Just kind of wanted to give you an update of where we're at as far as budget meetings are concerned. We have all of the department budget meetings completed. Those budgets are due back to Katie and I on the 25th. And then we'll go through there and approve the departments. And all the building level meetings are done except for 3. All right, Oak Grove and Pickett. So we have 2 left, Oak Grove and Pickett. And then we'll be done with those. Those are due back to us on the 18th of March. So we should be able to bring some information to the Board of Education as an update to the Finance Committee and the Board of Education in April. So that's kind of where we're at with the budget meetings. Any questions in regards to those? Okay, the second.
You know I don't know how to turn it off.
Throw it against the wall.
You hit that red
I have to
button.
have one normally.
That red
I
button.
haven't paid the insurance yet.
Okay, so the second agenda item is a 2019 levy and review, and because obviously we are approaching another levy, because our levies have a 5-year sunset. So what we wanted to do was kind of put this on the Finance Committee today, kind of talk about where we're at, talk about the strategies moving forward for the next levy. So you should have some documentation. It's a 1-page document. It was also sent to you with your packet. But what it is, I just kind of wanted to go down through this so we can help the community understand what we did. We did exactly what we said we were going to do with the last dollars that we asked for. So if you start at the top, you have attract and retain teachers and staff. We had salaries and benefits and annual increases per salary schedule for all employees. That was the cost to move everybody over and down, to give them their steps. And we honored that in 2019 and 20, we honored that in 2021, and we honored that in 21-22. We plan on honoring that in 22-23. The next line, you have an increase to base salary schedule for teachers and staff. So what that was a $500 increase to the base salary for certified staff and a 1.36% increase to non-certified staff, which is equivalent to the $500. We did that in 1920. We also did that in 2021 and did not build that into this. We did that in 21-22 and did not build that into this. And we plan on doing that in 22-23, and that increase could be even a little bit bigger this year. I don't know if you're paying a whole lot of attention to legislation, but the governor has come out with a base salary of $38,000 for teachers. It's nothing that has passed. I don't know that it will pass, but being in the position that we're in, I think it's probably in St. Joe's best interest to try to get to as close to 38 as possible. Our base salary right now is $37,200, so that would be an increase to the base salary by $800, which as of right now, that is going to be my recommendation. We do not have all the tax dollars in yet, and we have not did an estimated ending fund balance report, but I think we're going to end the year in good shape, and so I think it's going to be feasible for us to offer that. Now, with that being said, it makes it a little bit nervous to give those types of raises and then talk about a levy with a sunset on it. So just know that we do that with hesitation, but I think it's the right thing to do for the staff. Staff leave buyback, that was something that we put in there to cap that at $300,000. Fortunately, we were never in a position where we needed to do that because financially we were in better shape than we thought we were going to be, and so we felt like that would just be a detriment to staff, so we did not put that on there. And just so you know what we're spending, in 1920 we spent $428,571.13. 2021 we spent $490,399.16, and in 21-22 we spent $244,572. And that's the dollars that we give to our staff when they buy their leave, vacation, retirement, those types of things it goes back to them when they leave the district. Hiring of 9 additional staff or teachers for smaller class sizes, that was done. Hiring of 2 additional staff, school psychologists, that was also done. Unfortunately, those 2 psychologists are not with us now. We had 1 leave in the middle of the year last year and then 1 leave this year. We do have an intern that's working for us. The problem is we can't find them. And so we still have those jobs posted. It is something that we are committed to, but the issues that we're having is finding the right people for those positions. But we do have an intern we plan to hire for 22-23, which is a good thing.
This might be off the subject, but does the Grow Your Own program apply to counselors? Or do you know?
You know, I do not know. I don't think so. I think it's just teachers, right? Just teaching staff. All right, so moving on down, we'll go into security upgrades and improvements, and you're going to hear a little bit about the closure of that project coming up. But we had structural changes to the building entrances. We built that in 1920. We built that in 2021. We are still doing that in 21-22, so that's another addition that we put in there, and you're going to hear from some gentlemen in a minute about what they're doing this summer. But we have completed all new entrances at the elementaries. We have all new safety security entrances at the middle school, and we have plans in place to complete the ones at the high school. Security camera software and related equipment, we built in dollars for that in 1920, or yeah, 20 and 21, and 21 and 22. We are still in the process of that. We will spend the $200,000 this year, and it's on elementary cameras. But we have all the cameras updated at the high school, we have all the cameras updated at the middle school, and we're now working in the elementaries. So we're in good shape there. Additional school safety officers, SROs, we built those in from year 1 to 5. Unfortunately, the plan has been derailed a little bit because we can't find them. We're having problems getting them. We do have a partnership with the St. Joseph Police Department, but if you read in the paper, you understand that they're having a crazy shortage going on right now too. So at the next finance meeting, I'll report to you exactly where we have those and what we are missing. But it wasn't from our, we would have hired them, and we did have some in place that we had to back off or do some combinations of middle schools and those types of things.
How many do we currently have?
Total, I think, that's a good question. I told Robert to send me that email because I knew that was going to get brought up. I want to say 6, and we want 8,
Okay.
so we're 2 under.
On things like the cameras, where you've added those, for going forward, then are those paid for out of maintenance if they need to be upgraded?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just, the preventative maintenance is built into the maintenance budget, yeah, operations side. Let's see, so operation costs, the annual average increase in materials, supplies, and utilities, we built that in at about $530,000. That was a guess at the time. That's pretty close, to be honest with you, where we're at. Scheduled and preventative maintenance for buildings and equipment, $1.1 million in year 1, and we put $510,000 and then half of that in 21-22. But I am happy to say that that number is a lot greater than $250,000 this year, so we are above and beyond what we said we would be. And then previous deferred maintenance and repairs would be your asphalt, your concrete, your tuck pointing, your windows, your roofs, your SIP projects, and we built those in at 1.225, 625, and 200, and that budget is right at $2 million a year. So we're spending a lot more money there than what we're saying. What was it this year? 1.883.
1.8.
Yeah. So as you can see, really the only thing that we have not completed is the entrances, and then the staff leave buyback didn't take place, but that was a good thing for us. So we just kind of wanted to put that out there, and at this time I would entertain any questions you might have in regard to this document, and then we'll go right into number 3 to kind of talk about levy review.
So upgrading to $38,000, that would take place next year, right?
The recommendation to move the base salary to $38,000 will take place for 22-23, yes.
And You referenced the governor talking about that. If the governor, if that passes, will that come funded?
That's a good question, because they're saying that it'll come funded with a percent. It'll come funded with a percent. So, no, to answer your question. And the small schools in Missouri are gonna have a real problem, because a lot of them are 28, 29,000, maybe less than that. And, I mean, there's no way you can afford to do that. So we're sitting in a pretty good position. That's why I don't think it'll pass. Because I don't think there's any way that school districts can survive. But, on the other hand, it very well could be read between the lines for consolidation or something like that too, you know. So there could be pieces to the puzzle that we're missing. But as far as the dollars and cents are concerned, it's going to be hard to financially sustain it.
Gabe, the governor said at Great Northwest Days a 70-30. The state would provide 70% of the financing for that 38,000 and local 30%.
Yep.
That's his, did I say that right, David?
Yep.
That's his, but now, like you said, getting that to go through and, you know.
But even coming up with 30% of $10,000 for every employee that you have, that's not going to be a, you know, you can see how what it's going to do to the small schools. Most of your large schools are close enough to it, that if you're in a position like we are, you know, and there's a lot of people, larger schools that are at 37 to 38, I think you'll see them just try to go ahead and pump it. And it looks good from a public standpoint too, because you are to that point.
You don't think there'll be schools that say wait and then see if they can get funded to make up that difference?
I think they'll have to. I don't know how else you can fund it.
It'll
But we'll already be there.
It'll also depend on the requirements. Sometimes they phase it in. They'll say, hey, we're passing it now and you have until this date to get there. So they could give a year or two.
I think the last time around when they changed the minimum salary, it was a 5-year deal, if I remember right.
Okay.
And it was like a 25 and a 26 and a 27 and 28.
Robert said we have 7 SROs right now.
7, okay. I didn't know if it was 7. So we have 7 SROs. So that's good. So we put one back on. I do know that we were down to 6. So when we have 8, then you have everything covered. One for all the elementaries, all the middle schools and high school covered, if we had the 8, and that was our goal. Okay, so that leads us into number 3, the renewal. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you. This is something that the levy is something that has to pass in April of 2024, unless you would, you know, you'd lose all those dollars. You would lose the 61 cents, which equated to about $6.6 million the last time around. So that would be, you know, mean drastic cuts across the board. So it's better to proactively start talking about this. And so what I did is the earliest you can do it now is August. The good thing about a levy is it's only 50% no matter when you run it. So it doesn't have any strings attached as far as 57 and 2/3 and all of that. That's just the bond issues. So you can run it in April, you can run it in August, and you can run it in November, are the 3 options that you have on the levy. November, a lot of times, is an election you want to stay away from whenever you have school things, in my opinion, just because it depends on, it becomes real political in November. Obviously, that's when all your offices are running against each other, your national offices and those types of things. August is a good month, in my opinion. And, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to running in August of this year. And I've also had a couple board members ask me about, like, running it with no sunset and then trying to pass it again next time with the sunset. You know, that's something that the board or the finance committee, we're going to have to talk about. There are people that are adamantly opposed to taking the sunset off just because they feel like it's something that you have to have in order to pass a levy in St. Joseph. And that's neither here nor there for me. I don't care whether it's sunset or not. I'm worried about protecting the school district after April 2024. You can't pass it in April 2024. It's hard because how do you plan for 24-25 without knowing whether the levy's going to pass? So that in turn means you have August of 2022. You have November of 2022, which I would say would not be an option. And that's just me, I'm just giving you what I think. You have April of 2023. You have August of 2023. And then you have November of 2023. And November of 23 probably would be better than November of 22, because there's gonna be a lot more action in November of 22 than there would be on an odd year. So in order to run in August of 2022, you would have to have it on the ballot by May 27th of 2022. So if that's something that the board was going to entertain, then you would have from now, today, to May of the end of May, to decide whether you wanted to put something like that on the ballot. So I just kind of wanted to provide you with the timelines and the forecast, I guess. But it is something that probably we need to start having discussions about. I know it's not popular, but it's something that's going to be needed in order to offer the best education for the students here in St. Joseph. So, what kind of questions do you guys have?
I just want to make a comment. I think we should do it in August.
Okay.
Because if it fails, we have other attempts and we can, readjust how we're marketing to make that happen. I hate to call marketing a word, but
Well,
yeah. Similar.
and honestly, in my opinion, the timing's not terrible because the creative entourage or vision forward or whatever should have some, be taking some steps by then, so that we could be in a place to where we could talk about specifics. I really think it's important to create a document like this to tell people exactly what's going to happen, because if you don't, then they're not going to believe. So that's why I wanted to put this on the agenda today, and I wanted to publicly state that we have, we followed this plan to a T. Fortunately, we've been in better financial shape than what we thought we would be, so we could even grow a couple of these areas, especially with the staff.
I agree that creative entourage was positive, and I think you guys gained some advocates during that, and I think that might help get that
Yeah.
passed through.
And I think that that's, we have another meeting coming up next week, I guess, or maybe it's the week after.
22nd.
But hopefully it'll be just as positive, and if that's the case, then that's gonna help us. And it'll help tie this into it.
If you can get some momentum going,
Yeah,
carry it through.
I take it, yeah. So I'm gonna present the same information to the Board of Education, the exact same thing that was presented to you today, and try to get a feel for what direction they want to go. So thank you for the comment on saying let's go ahead and do it. I don't see that there's an issue with it as far as the timing is concerned. August, sometimes it's unpopular because your staff won't be back into work and some of those things, and they might not vote because they're not working. You're always going to have some detriment, right? There's always going to be some reason why people say they don't want to go vote.
When is the salary committee, when do they kind of finalize their assessment?
Well, I haven't provided him with, it'll probably be March. To answer your question, I have not provided Dr. Kraus with any numbers yet because we're still waiting on some tax dollars to come in.
I agree. I think the timing is good timing. If the salary committee can finish up by March and creative entourage by April, then May 27th is perfect timing. That's my opinion.
So you're saying this year, as opposed to any other time?
It kind of is a good temperature for the public. You kind of get to know what they're thinking and what their oppositions are if they do oppose it.
And there's always extra time. If there's big errors or big issues and everything, it's time to get the kinks out and
Yeah,
do it again in April if need be.
I agree with you on that because I think it needs to be passed by April of '23. I really do. I think it needs to be passed a year ahead. And you would have two opportunities, but I don't know that you want to try to shove something down their throat, so I don't know that August, November, and April is the best. But I think August, April is a good avenue to take, and if you pass it in August, then you don't have to worry about it in April.
What about a little discussion relative to the sunset?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know what a sunset was, Tom, when I got here, I'll be honest with you. I had been in education for 21 years and had never heard the word. So it was something that was definitely new to me. I mean, it presents its challenges. And one thing that I would like to see, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you take the sunset away, but why can't we ask for 7 years, or why can't we ask for 10? And I just think the more years that you can gain, the less you're going to upset the. I mean, it's tough from a district administration standpoint. It's hard to plan whenever you have a sunset on $7 million.
Have we ever considered a strategy of having an amount that didn't have a sunset and maybe an amount that did, that begin to build the base a little bit? I feel like that we kind of go from a cycle of trying to get this passed. It a little bit hamstrings what we can think creatively about our district, because we always have looming the sunset period of time.
Right. No, I agree,
And maybe 61 cents without a sunset's too much, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been in those discussions in the past, but it seems to me like we've kind of shown that this is a base amount that our district needs to be able to operate effectively.
Yeah.
And to improve beyond that, when we always have that part at risk, is something that I think paralyzes us a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea, and it's definitely something that could probably, we could look into it. It's probably something I could partner with LJ Hart on and kind of talk about strategies that other districts have used. There's not too many districts with sunsets, and then there probably is no district with a sunset and a Prop C at the same time.
I was just gonna say, that's an interesting concept. I recall, I think we did offer options when I was on the city council. You can either go this way or this way, and either way, you're gonna get it passed. But I had some questions on that. How would that work out as to how many votes you would need? You would need 50%. Say you offer an option of no sunset or with a sunset.
So two options at the same time?
Mhm.
Yeah, you'd have to have 50% on both of them. And that was kind of like the levy of 2017, right? Didn't they do Prop C and the 61 cents at the same time? The one that failed in November of 17?
I don't think we did two.
No, not like that.
Because, oftentimes you're encouraged not to do two at
Yeah.
one time. We considered it.
Well, Savannah did it actually, and
Yeah.
this last time around, and they had one fail and one not fail. They
Yeah.
had one pass.
Okay, clarify a little. When you saying options, what did you mean?
Well, I just think that, I'm not sure I know, Gary, but what I see is that 61 cents hangs over our head, and here we are,
Well,
for
relative
3
to a
years,
sunset or no.
two full years from that, and really that's gonna flavor everything we do. It's even gonna flavor vision forward. What can we choose to do, because we have this amount of money that's at risk, and if we could reduce the impact of the sunset, still leave a portion that gave the community the chance to say yes or no, but build the base. It seems to me like that would be a way that would strengthen us going forward. Am I being clear on that? Probably
Well,
not.
yeah, in either event, the strength of the proposal is gonna be what sells it, sunset or no sunset, If you have a strong proposal, you can pass it without a sunset, that's my opinion. But we were looking at maybe extending the sunset, the duration of the sunset.
Well, I was just throwing out ideas. I would love to run it at 61 cents with no sunset. If we felt we could put together a strong enough plan to get it passed, that's definitely in the best interest of the school district. But
in looking at other things, you might say, okay, 61% with a 10-year sunset. something like that.
Yeah, that's what just to try to
The
get.
challenge with the 61 cents really is, that 61 cents is all in to staff by the end of that 5 years. So there's not a whole lot of flexibility with it. That 61 cents, similar to what Tom was saying, is almost part of the fabric and the foundation of what the district is about. So it's not where you can say, hey, we're gonna take this 61 cents and now part of it can be used for something else. It's already, by the time it's done, it's all gonna be in staff. So unless you're making reductions in staff, you're not gonna have the ability to free up that 61 cents. Even though, but we are sitting in better financial shape than what we were, but that's how this plan was put together, was here's some one-time things we can do, but by the time it's done, it all goes in to staff.
So our facilities, there's nothing in there for that.
It's
Not in the levy.
Not by the time you're
Are
done
you
with the
meaning it
fifth
should be
year.
increased then? Like a larger amount?
Yes, I mean, if you want anything besides staff after 5 years with the 61 cents, then it needs, so you're taking away from your facilities.
Right.
I
The
think that-
fortunate position that we've been in the last couple of years, we've been able to transfer our maximum allowable transfer of about 5 million from Fund 1 to Fund 4 and still build the fund balances, which just allows us to take care of some of those buildings. But there could be a year that you can't make that transfer. If you can't make that transfer, you're gonna see it. You're gonna see that the sidewalks are gonna get worse, you're gonna see the asphalt's gonna get worse, because those things are all in a rotation schedule. I mean, there's a purpose behind all of that stuff. And, you know, HVAC. So yes, I mean, increasing it. So maybe you talk about 61 cents is staff, no sunset, and then run another one for 30 cents for maintenance. That's kind of the.
That's what I'd like to see. I'd like
Yeah.
to see us consider some kind of strategy like that.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying it is this is still an early time to have some discussion.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good time. That's why I brought it up today, because we're not in a bad position. We are definitely ahead of the game. It's time to start having those discussions. And sure, I can get some information put together.
That's what Savannah did. They ran two separate issues. One was for staff and one was for maintenance. The staff passed, the maintenance didn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, not very often do you in education put two issues on the ballot because you're told, I mean, LJ Hart would tell us you don't want to put two issues on. But at the same time, I mean, you know, Tom mentioned being creative, but the bad thing about the sunset is the majority, and this is what the private sector doesn't deal in, 80% of their budget is not their people. 80 to 85% of their budget is not people, and that's our budget, that is. And so when we sunset, if we can't maintain that 61 cents, now we've just either lost staff, cut drastically, which I was in that place a few years ago with $8 million we had to cut, or you're taking back your cutting pay. Who in this day and age that works would want that to happen in their job, in their position? And so that's the thing, that's what's hard to sell about the education. When people, I get sunsets, because people want to make sure you're spending the money on what you say you're gonna spend it on. Okay, that's like a bond, you can, you know, we're gonna build this building, this is what we're gonna do, and you have it. But for a levy, when you're talking about operating expenses, it's hard. And when Gabe says there's very few, probably you can count on one hand out of the 500 and some school districts in Missouri that even know what a sunset is, because you just don't operate that way. You know, it's just not a good way to operate, so.
Yeah, we're locked into it now, maybe it's time to start weaning.
I
Yeah.
wish
There you
there was
go.
a way to communicate to the public though that this levy is our operating cost, that there's, I mean, we can't sunset that, that's what happened. But there's such a negative
Yeah,
feel, so how do we really seriously sit down with the intention of making the community understand that the 61 cents, if it expires, then that's where we make the harsh cuts, that's when people lose their job. Because yeah, this is just paying for our operation, just our people. And I know St. Joe, we love our teachers, we love our people, we do need to take care of our people, especially with retention. I mean, what keeps them working here in St. Joe and not going somewhere else?
Yeah.
I think the problem is that the public are looking at it as if it's like a threat.
Yeah.
Either you renew this or you cut teachers or their pay. But it's the reality. I mean, it's not like it's a threat, it's
the reality.
exactly. And there has to be a way to let the public understand that. I mean, it's not a threat, it's just what we have to do.
I think the added incentive is, in all this, and this has always been my perspective, is, you know, it's an opportunity. I don't look at it as a challenge. I look at it as an opportunity to perhaps give teachers and staff a pay raise. If we go beyond the 61 cents and 100% of that revenue is going to teacher and staff pay raises, to me, that's the incentive that you get when you vote yes on this. And I would still lean toward, because I would side with Tammy on this, is taking the sunset off for the first round and then seeing how it does. And if we still have to run it again, we have to run it again, maybe with the 7-year sunset.
Well, and I think this is all good discussion, and that's the reason why we put this on the agenda today. This is what we wanted to happen, so thank you. Because if the community sees this, okay, they're not just gonna put this on the ballot one time and try to shove it down our throat. They're 2.5 years out, or they're over 2 years out, and they're talking about this. So, hopefully that helps understand the importance of what happens with these dollars. And maybe I could be on one of the vision forward things.
That's what I was just thinking.
As a topic, March, whatever, April, and we could just put it out that way. Because if it was, well,
Yeah, I don't think
had
you
a
want
good reception.
I don't think you want to go into it with the attitude of, okay, maybe it won't pass this time.
Right.
No, I don't.
Pass the next
No,
time.
I really hope it passed the first time,
You
that
have to
would
have a
be
strong
amazing, yeah.
You have to propose it the first
We've
time.
got to turn that around.
But we gotta keep our people, and unfortunately, the distressful nature has created this sunset, and then it's creating even more problems. And I think if the community really understood that the reason why the future of St. Joe is so uncertain is because our basic needs are wrapped into this levy. So if that doesn't pass, then our basic needs can no longer be met, and tough things have to be done. So if we could try to say, look, we've done this, how long have we had a sunset? It's been a decade or so, hasn't it? It's been a long
Well,
time.
Did they sunset?
Have we earned back the
You
trust
used to
yet?
have one when I was here, and then
Yeah.
you
I
lost
think
it.
that another problem is
Not close.
changing how people look at the district as a whole. I mean, if everyone's always complaining about every little detail about issues, it's gonna make people only think about the negative. And as we are arriving, asking about this extra money, okay, but you remember the time when this happened? It's never gonna change until the image of our district changes.
Yeah, I think it's a great discussion too. Thanks for bearing with me on that. I appreciate that. If we could build that 61 cents without a sunset around the teachers, to what David said, maybe we could build a strong case to the community and maybe not try to go beyond that this time. You know what I mean? Say, hey, this is about our teachers. This is about the wages and benefits that are required to keep quality teachers. And I think we heard that loud and clear from that forum. And maybe we could do that, and then it puts us in the position that says, sometime in the future, with the right plan, we could consider something facilities-wise that maybe have a sunset. Just an idea.
I agree.
Just to clarify one thing, just so you make sure everybody understands, you can't reduce somebody's salary. Your teacher's contract or your teacher's contracts, you can't come back and say, well, you were making 38,000, now we're gonna make it 30. They get paid the same amount or increased. You can't roll, because I thought I heard a couple people say something about you'd lose somebody, you could reduce somebody's salary or something like that. The only other thing you could do is make adjustments in your benefit plan that frees up money, but you can't reduce somebody's actual salary. You either cut staff or you cut something else to make up your difference.
To me, that's why it's so important to not have a sunset.
So important not to. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time and it has not benefited our city at all.
I'm pretty sure in 17, that proposal, that $1.19 did not have a sunset. It failed. It did not have
Yeah.
a sunset, but it failed. But there was also other issues with that.
But we are sticking with 61 cents, right? So, I mean, Or maybe a little bit more.
I
I
think
think
it should be increased if it's all going towards teachers and everybody knows that and we're able to
I
prove
think
that. And
if we go
everyone's
too
always
high,
like, the
though.
teachers need extra money. Well, here is a good way to prove that.
I agree.
and just be careful not to go too high.
Yeah,
Because
no,
that dollar, that one was, I heard somebody upset people, my
Yeah.
parents, the aging population will, they're the ones who have to vote. And they're on fixed incomes and they will bend.
We still have the cheapest taxes
We
in this community, so,
I wish.
I mean, and I'm not being rude, but the elderly, I know they say they can't afford it, but if they go to Platte City or Smithville or someone else, they're gonna pay almost twice.
Yep.
This is the cheapest tax base, even if we went up more, they're still,
So maybe we need to do a better job of communicating that.
yeah, absolutely. Because I see it in taxes, I see here, somebody here might have $3,500 in taxes, and I'll sell something in Smithville, and it's like 7,000, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, their tax base is so high down there. People have no idea how cheap our taxes are here. And they complain about things at the school district, or we don't have enough money. Well, pay more taxes, and I understand there's people who can't, but they're not gonna go anywhere else. They're not
There's
gonna
a lot
save
who
money by
can't.
moving, they're gonna hurt themselves if
I
they
just-
move.
I just wanted to clarify something too. So on the levy, we could use that for, like, that's our operating cost.
Yes.
So it does sometimes go to building maintenance, but if we wanna do something big with our facilities, it's gonna be a bond, right?
Yes, yeah.
So.
Yep.
We
You would
still
never-
have that. If we pass the levy at a more modest amount, we have our operation costs covered.
Yep.
And then I hope Vision Forward's gonna be working towards a plan, and then we propose a bond for our facilities.
I mean, I think that's probably
What's gonna probably work out. Because
So-
our facilities are in need, and that's gonna take a good chunk.
But,
I don't wanna sound like a broken record, but I just think we need to go beyond the 61 cents to compete with other districts, and to also, just as an added incentive, to show our teachers that we appreciate what they do and we support our teachers and staff in our community.
I want to say just one more thing too, and I like all the points of discussion. Am I saying too much, Gaten?
no, all good.
I think if we could get to 61 cents without a sunset in August. You guys have done a great job of improving and maintaining the buildings. And that, one thing we didn't hear at that meeting with that broad group was much about facilities. And I know that's still the big elephant in the room, what are we gonna do about facilities? And it's one that we need to think of, but we certainly don't wanna rush a plan between now and the end of May to say, we've got the plan on facilities.
Yeah.
We may have some that we can do because we've already thought out, but if we could secure getting rid of the sunset and creating a new base, I think we'd be cheering about that being the case. And then for the first time in a long time, we could look forward and say, how do we improve? And so that's my last thing. I'll try not to say something.
No, that's good.
You're fine.
But do you think that it would be, like me personally, I think the levy would be more likely to pass if you attach it to a salary increase. That's just my theory, I could be wrong. But the police department just got a raise, sheriff got a raise, we even increased taxes for parks. I think now is the time to give it a shot, but.
I agree, honestly, I agree with you. I think part of the package putting together, getting rid of it and having it for salaries and benefits has got to be included. You can't do it and then teachers not get an increase.
Yeah.
but if the 61 cent currently is meeting our basic needs, how can we propose an increase of salary? Wouldn't it have to increase the 61 cent?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, it could, but the greater risk is we lose the 60, and that's what's over our head. If we lose that thing, we're really in trouble. And so what we want to say is, let's reset the floor. I mean, that thing is just terrible.
Then what are we gonna cut to increase the salary? If the 61 is meeting our basic needs, then
Well,
how?
that gets us out through year 5 with the increase and getting the minimum to where it is.
Does that include the 38,000 base?
It doesn't, that's totally separate from this. The 38,000 base will be coming from dollars that are Fund 1 transferred or left over.
And in the meantime, teachers are gonna be leaving if other areas are able to offer them more.
Yeah, well, and I'm for more, don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to more. I just am trying to say, if I was gonna have more with a sunset or 61 cents and no sunset, I'd take that right now.
Whatever it is, we're gonna have to detail where the
Yes.
61 cent is going.
I
Okay,
agree
this is
with that.
going to salaries. A lot of people don't understand what the levy is,
No.
where the money's going.
They have no idea.
The last time we passed that 61 cent levy was because of that document in front of you. And we took it out and we put it everywhere across this town. And we said, here's where the money's gonna go. And now that Dr. Edgar can say, check, 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 that's exactly where the money went. We're in a great position to, but that's what we didn't have in November 17 with the $1.19, but that document right there, I carried in my purse, it was in shambles by the end of the election, but, you know, we took it to every meeting we could possibly be in front of, we took it everywhere, and, you know, Dr. Edgar and Dr. Van Zyl, that's a piece of gold right there, because you're showing them exactly where the dollars are going for 5 years, you know. That's your selling.
Thanks for being patient.
Oh, no problem.
No problem.
I like
Thank
your
you.
questions and your comments. I mean, there was a couple things I didn't really think of.
You have a question?
I'm just going to throw in if it was okay.
Yep.
I kind of somewhat respectfully disagree with why it passed last time. It was because of the sunset is why it passed, because it failed the time much before that. So, I have had this conversation with Gabe before, but I would not be opposed to taking it to 81 cents, as you and I discussed before, and even raise it by a year to 6 years. And I think, I know there wouldn't be any opposition. Must have the sunset. We gotta give the public to trust us one more time. Now, we're gonna pass this 2 years ahead of time now. So by adding one more year to it, adding the 20 cents to it, that takes us clear to 2030. We pass it in August. We're taken care of now for the next 9.5 years, until 2030, with the extra money that you guys haven't even been trying to figure in. You're trying to figure out how to deceive the public again and convince them of how you're going to spend the money and all that kind of stuff by simply not holding your side of the bargain, our side of the bargain. I can live with the sunset, because what you're doing now is what this group has taken my advice on. When they always argue the sunset is you can't plan a budget around it. Well, that is a false narrative. In our very town, we had proof of that with the, we had a sunset on our library tax. And when it was 20 years, but the same way with this. This is why we're talking about 2.5 years ahead of time. That's why we can start talking about it again in 2028. It doesn't run out until 2030. So that's where, let's go forward. Let's get an increase now. Let's add a year to it. But we want to tout the fact that we're going to leave the sunset in, because we can make our plans to that. And it's not the end, we're planning 2 years ahead of time, same way we'll do down the road. That's why you take away the argument of, oh, you can't plan budgets when you have a sunset. And another thing that's kind of hard to convince me of is a $147 million budget, how 6.5 million can be such a disaster. Two things. Now, I know it's attached to the most important thing. My issue is always been getting our teachers in the highest percentages in this state, right, equal with early childhood development of all kinds. So that was something I could probably, like I say, if you'd run this anytime the next time around without a sunset, it's not going to work.
I could tell you this, and one thing that I would question in regards to that is, I'm not saying it's hard to budget with the sunset. That's not what I was saying, but it's hard to do things you would normally do without a sunset. Let me give you one for an example. if you give somebody a $500 increase to base salary, that's a recurring expense. That's something that's gonna hit you in 23, 24, 24, 25, and it's gonna grow. That expense is gonna grow because it's gonna be tied to that person. Well, a conservative person's gonna go for 500 rather than 1,000. And I'll be honest with you, we were in a position to where I would have given a $1,000 increase last year and the year before that, if it wouldn't have been for the sunset. Because if that catches up to you, that $6.5 million becomes $11 million, and then it does create an issue. And so that, with staffing being something that's recurring, it's hard. Now, if it was a building, if you were gonna build a building, you knew it was $147 million, or you knew it was $12 million, it's okay, because it was $12 million. But on staffing, that expense grows. And with that increase, you're going from 1.36 to 3%.
And your point's well taken. You realize on bonds, building stuff, they all have a sunset.
Yeah.
They have a sunset automatically built into it.
No question.
So,
Because that's a finite project.
right.
Where
exactly.
staffing is an infinite project.
Right.
It's continuing. And I think to the other point that you said, Mr. Reader, was if you do it far enough out in advance and people pass it, then it's not a budgeting issue. But if you try in August and it doesn't pass, and you try in April and it doesn't pass, then that really does start becoming a budgeting issue, because if it's, for some reason it doesn't pass in your community, then you tie Gabe's hands or whoever's hands to be able to say, it didn't pass twice, what happened? Then we really are, and I forget who said it, was either Michelle or Latanya that said, then it does become an issue of, now we're gonna have to start telling you what we're gonna have to take away. And people look at it as a negative ploy to say, well, we told you no, and now you're telling us all the things we're gonna lose, and you're punishing us. At least that's what I hear from people. So if it's done far enough in advance, the budgeting part's not an issue, but it's the unknown of, are people gonna say no? And if they keep saying no, the closer you get to that, then you almost have to pull everything back in and say, we're not doing anything because we're gonna try to keep as many of our foundational pieces in place as we can, which is really what the 61 cents did, is Gabe and I and others were taking a look at it. This is what this district really needs, just to foundationally operate. It's not an above and a beyond ask. This is what's been able to carry us and catch us up in a couple of areas over the last 5 years, but now it's really a foundational structure. So I agree with you. If you're able to get it passed every 2 years in advance, it's not a budgeting issue, Ken. I think if it's the closer it gets to the end of it, then it really does become a budgeting issue.
But the bottom line on this is that, do you guys want it to pass or not?
Yep.
It'll pass, there won't be opposition to it, and I'm gonna take enough heat from my base, even wanting to raise it 20 cents, let alone add another year to it. But you know what I'm gonna say to the people that are gonna try to turn against me because here I'm advocating for more taxes? It's because, no, it's got the sunset in it. This group here decided to trust the public, again, for another 9 years, and we're gonna pass it again in 9 years. Not a problem, because we're gonna prove it, just like Gabe's been proving how we spent the money this last time around. The sunset sells it. You wanna run it one time and pass it, put the sunset on it. We're already adding that 20 cents to it, it's more than you dreamed of, Tom. Let alone we add another year to it. That's a significant adding a year to a 5-year process. So,
I don't disagree, I would like to know what the benefit of a sunset is.
accountability is why it got in place to begin with. And that's why it remains now, in this district especially, it's accountability. It makes this group, makes us accountable.
It gives
It
the
truly
public the
does.
power
Yes.
to decide, and they feel like if they're involved, that was the big thing.
I wish we controlled more of it on the sunset. I wish half our budget was sunsetted. Then we'd have to really perform. But 6 million of the 447 million, well, you know, we didn't.
I think the past track record shows that that's our accountability right there. That's my personal opinion. And I really don't, other than the public perception, I don't personally see the benefit of it.
I agree.
Well,
The reason Kenny, I really appreciate and respect what you're saying there, and I think you are, and that's what we're all talking about here, is what could be some possible solutions. We're just brainstorming.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I like about not having a sunset is we don't always have to talk to the public about increasing taxes. You know, we have, the fact is that then becomes a less frequent conversation that we have to go back to the public and say, we want more. Instead of our conversation with the public being about this is what we're doing and this is how we're effectively doing it, it allows us to not have to come back and ask all the time.
Yeah, and that's why I said in the very beginning, you know, even if you just increase it a year or two, and I thought we agreed on 7, by the way, not 6, but I'm kidding. You know, at the end of the day, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And you don't want to be foolish about it, but,
Yeah, ultimately, even without a sunset, the public has accountability at election time,
Right.
so it's there. But this is as a result of past sins, and it says you gotta get a sunset in if
Yeah.
you wanna do anything else, so that's why we have it now.
yeah, and I'll live, you know, we'll live with it if that's.
And it's about being proactive, not,
Yeah.
if we were sitting here telling you, we'll just wait until 2 more years is up and running again, then you should be throwing something at us. But it's also about being proactive, so.
So I do very much appreciate the conversation today. That's what I was hoping would happen. So thank you for all of the dialogue. So we'll move on into the next one, high school entrances. I have invited Tad and Mickey and Danny here with us today. I'm not sure who's going to do the talking, probably Tad. As I had mentioned in regards to the security entrances, all of them are complete at the elementaries and the middle schools. And they have plans at the high school, so if you want to just kind of touch base on each one of those and kind of explain what we're going to do, and we'll move on.
Sure. We'll start with Benton High School, and this is in the back. There's a sort of a wing back there by the entrance that is a fax classroom right now. We'll be talking about moving that and relocating the office to that area and bringing them in through there. So that creates your security right there in that before you ever get into the where the entry is now. And we don't have details on that. That would still need to be worked out exactly what it involves construction-wise. But we'll be talking about doing that in-house. Central High School is...
Before you go on, but basically, that location's already there. All it really takes is cutting a door from the outside into that classroom.
Well, the door's already there too.
It's on the side of it?
Yes.
I was talking, is this a door or is that a window? The one right next to where it says new office, that little thing right there? You're just gonna bring them in here and then bring them
Where that arrow
here?
is.
Right here.
Oh, you're bringing them over here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's if I pay attention to what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. Yeah. This is where you come in now.
Right.
So you're bringing them in this side, you're bringing them in that
Stick
door.
my stuff with a couple needles.
Yeah,
you know.
that's, I was gonna say,
Not
that's
those
where
kind of
the electrical.
First 3
And we wouldn't be getting into that part.
Yep, perfect. Now I understand, sorry.
That, all your security will take place right there at that entry.
Yep.
Central High School, a lot simpler. In the main lobby on the north side, one of those doors, the west door, we would build a vestibule there to contain people that come in, probably put a desk out there for the officer to sit at, possibly, but with windows in it so that from the office you could kind of see the comings and going there too. And so they would be detained in that vestibule before getting into the building.
And we talked about housing one of our campus supervisors. They'd be housed in that.
So, on this one, is this where the freshman annex where they're coming in
That's a
now?
Yes, yeah, and it'd be.
Some of us old timers still have the main hallway and sophomore hallway and freshman
Yeah,
annex.
freshman annex.
Yeah, got it.
So just to add, so how does that keep, I know we were gonna direct people to that entrance, but with those other doors that are there, if kids go out, at what keeps somebody from jutting in that door or anything?
Well, I think that's always the case.
Like every school.
Yeah, any door, if somebody's standing there when somebody goes out it, they can run right in.
But if you have somebody sitting there, campus security, that'll at least help.
It'll help there, yeah, because they'll be right next door to
Yep.
it. The eastern doors, we thought we'd keep open just because there's a lot of comings and going through there.
Yeah, but you could just make those exit onlys.
And that's what those would be, yeah.
They would actually stay the same as they are right now, card readers on.
Yep.
And that was Danny's idea.
You gave me credit for something.
And then Lafayette, that was a tough one,
It's a nightmare.
but we just gonna bring them in the way they come in now up those stairs, and we would just have to build a wall around, kind of enclosing that stair and directing them into the office, which is right there. So it takes a little chunk out of that hallway to do so, but it still allows 11 feet, which is adequate to still get passed through that corridor.
So you'll just come up to the right side of the steps and you go down out the door to the left side of the steps.
It'll be just like it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You get to the top of the steps, it'll be a wall, you keep, and then a pair of doors, so.
Yeah.
And we did get this approved through the principals as well, so they're made aware of these designs, and these jobs will be completed before school next year, this summer.
That's the plan.
And even Dr. Gilpin agreed.
Thanks.
That's what we're looking at.
It looks like there's really only one that's the major issue. The other two were not too bad.
Right. And the major one does work out.
You know how much that takes out of the hallway there?
It doesn't take out but more
gotta
than
turn it down.
maybe 3 feet.
I would say
It leaves 11 feet,
It does.
which is pretty wide.
Any questions in regards to that?
What's the estimated cost to do that?
What does it cost on each one of those?
Well, it's kind of like, how much does it cost for a modular kitchen? Everyone's a little bit different. Some things, if we don't have to change doors or things like that, exterior doors, we'll do everything in-house. We can keep it, just the electronic hardware and stuff, it's a few $1,000s. But when we're talking about adding new doors, or we have to buy new panic bars that are, at $1,200 a piece on the doors, things like that. It's hard to say. I don't know what you want me to price.
If you had to build everything brand new,
At Lafayette, I would say, probably 28,000, 32,000 at Lafayette probably. And we get
if you had
walls,
to build everything
panic
brand
bars,
new,
all that stuff. Benton, probably probably in the $20,000 range at Central, I'm guessing.
so all of them together, you'd probably be around 80 to 100,000 if you had to build everything brand new.
Yeah, if we move the fax room, that means, if we can save the cabinets out of the fax room and take them to the new room and make them work there, and they're still not that bad a shape probably, Benton, it's not that old, we can save a lot of money.
But I think you all know these are the most challenging, which is why they were the ones that were.
why we
didn't get
waited.
last.
We had a couple challenges at some other places, but.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Me too. I'm just thrilled there's a plan, because I had said had them like Lafayette, I just gave that one up. I just couldn't even picture it, but I'm also not in construction, so. And I'm thrilled to have all of our schools with secure entrances by next fall.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it. The last thing on the agenda is a turf football field at Central, and this is not, we're not making a decision today, but as you know, a lot of our facilities are embarrassing compared to the people we compete against, for lack of better words. And I think especially with the places that Central participates, our kids go see that stuff, they know. So I think it's time we at least start having discussions about making some upgrades to some of our facilities. And the first question is going to be, why did you pick Central over Benton or Lafayette? I think it's something that the Board of Education should look at, some kind of a phase-in plan to where they commit to all of them over a certain period of time. I just think Central is probably the best place to start, just because they have more offerings, they have more uses for it, they have more kids participate, those types of things, so you're affecting them in a bigger way. So alls I need from the finance committee today is just kind of a blessing to move forward, bring back some costs, take a look at the options that we have. It's really not gonna take a whole lot because this was something that I looked at last year, the year before last, I guess, when we were talking about changing facilities. I had to work with a company in new facilities like at American Family and whenever we were talking about that stuff. So those numbers are obviously higher today than they were a year and a half ago because of where we're at with COVID. But I really think you could do a turf football field and a new track for less than $1 million.
That's what I was gonna ask about. It's my
Yeah.
understanding that we don't have a track that's.
Yeah, we would need to fix it too
Yeah.
and make it a real 8-lane track. But we do that work, when you do it all together, the same company doing it, it'd be a lot cheaper. And so I think it's probably something that needs to be taken a look at all at once.
I think we need it, and I think, wasn't there a school, I wanna say it was Blue Springs, and I could be wrong, but it was either last year or the year before, didn't they refuse to play on our field because they were worried about injury, and we had to move we had to move the game there because they said, we're not playing on this with our players. Like,
Wow.
that's a big thing, it's embarrassing, so it does need to be updated. I would support it.
Is it
And-
in that bad of shape?
Yeah.
And like I said, we're not here to approve anything today, or I'm
Just
gonna
getting price quotes.
just gather some numbers, put some stuff together, talk about some streams of revenue that we could use to do something along those lines.
I keep in mind what you already mentioned. If you're looking to go in for a revenue issue next year, these are the types of issues that people like to pick up. Just like you said, okay, you're gonna do it for Central, so I think you need to have a solid plan in place when you're gonna do the other ones.
Okay.
Can we get price quotes for all three
Yeah,
schools?
yeah.
But
I mean, it would be cheap. The problem with all of them is none of them have a regulation track.
Yeah,
So,
and there may not be room to.
in Benton and Lafayette, there might not be room for regulation tracks.
So
The other
have
thing
the
you
answers,
can do-
whatever
Yeah.
questions
Right.
are gonna come.
The other thing you can do is if you fix one, you have the ability for all the schools to use it in some way, shape, or form through some type of rotation, because they all don't play at home. Not that it would be perfect,
Now,
but you
you
could
know
at least
Ben's
balance
not
it
gonna
out.
wanna play at Central.
I'm sorry?
We do use their track sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when we do, if we're
Even
gonna
if
host a
even though it's
district,
not
if we're gonna host a district meet, it's gonna be at one location.
And then
If you
usually it's
wanna,
Central.
you wanna play on a turf field before you go play somebody else on a turf field, you can figure out some way to have that. So there are places that have, even though it's at Central's location, that have district athletic facilities that they share. But I'm just saying, so nobody could feel like, there's ways to develop a plan that there could be some type of rotation through there. Not every game would be there, but you could figure out some way to do something for track and for football or soccer. The soccer's a whole other issue that people don't like our soccer fields.
And that's one of the other reasons that I think Central is a good place to start, because their soccer facility is not acceptable. We had a lot of complaints about the Bodie, where they play soccer behind Bodie. And now putting in middle school football, we could turn that into a middle school football field, which I think that's what it needs to be anyway. So there's just a few more moving parts there at Central than there were at other places. So it had nothing to do against the north or the south, it just had to do with, Central has less facilities than Benton and Lafayette, and they have twice as many kids, or actually more than twice as many kids.
I know we're out of time, but I just cannot resist. In 1977, I was taking technical writing. I'm an engineer, and my subject was putting turf on noise, on that noise field. Of course, Missouri Western was still playing then at that time, but I'm surely showing my age here. Right. I'm really showing my age, and that would be, we'd been replacing it by now if we'd done it, because that was lousy turf.
It was a lot different turf that you were talking about.
I'm just talking about, but it just kind of makes me, if I'm smiling, it's why I'm thinking about the fact is that one is we want our kids using those fields, we want to have them have fields they're able to use.
Well, I tell you, I think one thing that, you talk about the funding source, and you talk about those types of things. whenever we run a prediction of our ending fund balance for 21, 22 for this year, if it looks like those balances are gonna be a little heavier than what they were the year before, you can just take dollars right away from that, and that's how you spend it, and that's how you justify it, and that's how you do it, and it's done, you don't talk about it anymore.
Again, and that's just a big thing with, when we're having to go back and say, do we get 61 or 81 cents?
Yeah.
How do we do it? That's a big thing. If you didn't have that, you could do that easily.
Yeah.
Quick question. They used to have the asphalt base under that. Do they still build turf fields like that? How do they do it now?
You know, it's rock and sand,
Yeah,
drainage system.
drainage system.
So it's not like, well, if you remember.
It's not as hard as
the
they used to be.
Metrodome in Minneapolis, or the Astrodome where you hit a baseball and it would hit the ground, it would shoot up in the air like 25 feet, because that's had an asphalt or a concrete layer. But almost all of the way, because we've built a couple of them in different places I've been in, it's normally a crushed rock, sand filtration, so the water actually gets absorbed and piped away underground.
Back in the
It's
70s,
got
I
that
tried out
rubber.
with the Royals in Royal Stadium, and they had the hard surface turf.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
Didn't want to slide on that field, did you?
No. I think I twisted my ankle trying to slide in.
Any other questions for the group? All right, if not, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Second.
You know how much it costs for other ones?